For a chi-squared test for independence, we need to be able to input the data into a matrix. So on the calculator, that's second matrix. And then choose Edit. And we'll be using matrix A. And we can choose what size of matrix. Now the grid, excluding the totals columns, is a 2 by 4 grid. So that's the matrix we're going to make, 2 by 4. And then we can just, the appropriate size grid will appear and we can type in all the data. That's how to set it up. Now, what are we comparing in this particular example? Well, we've got genre of music and gender. So our chi-squared test is for independence, so our H0 is that favourite genre of music is independent of gender, and our alternate hypothesis is that it's not. And that's always the case for chi-squared tests for independent. It's just is versus isn't. Now we need to work out the expected values, and the example they've given us, we can get the calculator to do all this for us, but the expected value for a female liking pop. Well, we've got 40 people in total liking pop, but the split of the genders is 38 to 42, so 42 out of 80 is the proportion that will be female. So 40 times 42 out of 80 is 21, the expected number. Now we could work out all of that to get the table of expected values, or we could just use the calculator by going stat tests and then C chi-squared test. And the observed is the matrix we've already set up, and it's going to work out the expected for us and put it into matrix B, so we can just go back and look up matrix B. So when we press calculate, we get some values, but at this stage we don't want those values. We'll come back to them. We're going to go back to second matrix and have a look at what matrix B is. So we'll automatically have put it into number 2, matrix B. And we press enter a couple of times. It gives us all the expected values of 19, 7.125, 4.75, 7.125, 21, 7.875, 5.25 and 7.875. Much quicker than working it out by hand. Now, there is a rule for chi-squared that says each value must be greater than 5. So this value of 4.75 is too low for us to perform a chi-squared test. And the way to get around that is to just combine 2 of the columns. So we're going to combine folk with jazz, just because they're adjacent to each other. So we'll need to go back to our first matrix and change it so that it's now a 2 by 3 matrix with those 2 columns put together. So we need to edit matrix A, and just change the last column to say 11 and 14. So our matrix now is 18, 9, 11, 22, 6, 14. And then we can get the calculator by doing stat tests chi-squared to put the expected matrix into B. And now our expected matrix should have all values above 5. So we've got 19, 7.125, 11.875, 21, 7.875 and 13.125. So all our values obey our rule that we need to be greater than 5. The degrees of freedom is given to us in the chi-squared test. So stat tests C. It tells us that the degrees of freedom in this case is 2. And then the test statistic is 1.1629, which in the olden days we could look up in the table, but the calculator does it all for us and tells us this is comparable to a probability of 0.559, which is greater than our 10% that we wanted, and therefore, as with all hypothesis testing, this means we do not reject H0. So our final conclusion is that we do have independence. Independent of gender.